So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Become the Uchiha Leader? So let's start the series. Sarutobi stared solemnly into his crystal ball, attempting once more to peer into Naruto's whereabouts. It had been a full week since he had last seen the boy, and he was beginning to question the wisdom of revealing the truth about Naruto's heritage and potential. The meeting had not gone well, leaving Naruto in seclusion, barely speaking to the Hokage since he learned the truth. When the crystal ball briefly glowed brightly, Hiruzen felt a glimmer of hope, but it quickly faded, returning to its usual state. Sighing, he stowed the crystal ball away and shook his head, his thoughts consumed by Naruto. Naruto-kun, I hope you can forgive me for the lies. I should have convened the council immediately. But I didn't. What should I do now? The third Hokage was drawn from his contemplation by a cool breeze that swept through the room, gently stirring some papers on his desk. Smirking to himself, he closed his eyes and nodded. Good day, Jiraiya-kun. I take it you have a lead on her whereabouts at last? Jiraiya silently closed the window and took a seat across from his old sensei. He crossed one leg over the other and frowned. Before we discuss that, I want to know why Naruto has secluded himself. What the hell did you say to him, old man? Hiruzen groaned and lightly tapped his forehead against his desk, then retrieved his pipe from the drawer. After everything with Orochimaru, you want to berate me already? I still can't believe we survived that ordeal. It's a miracle I'm even alive, Jiraiya-kun. He raised his eyes to meet Jiraiya's and sighed heavily. I'm too old for this. I told Naruto-kun the truth, Jiraiya. About everything, his parents, the Kyuubi, our knowledge, the laws I enacted to protect him, his parents' wishes, your and Tsunade-chan's roles as his godparents. Everything. Since then, Naruto-kun has hidden away inside the Uzumaki Namikaze compound, and I haven't seen him since. I hoped he'd at least stay in touch with his friends, Kakashi-kun, or even you, but from what I've heard, nobody has seen him since I revealed the truth. Just as Jiraiya appeared ready to erupt and voice his anger, Hiruzen raised his hand, his expression determined. Don't say a word, Jiraiya-kun, until I'm done. Hear me out and understand my reasons. And then you can speak your mind, understood? Jiraiya begrudgingly nodded, eyes narrowed, and Hiruzen continued, I promoted Naruto to Chunin, Jiraiya. He proved himself more than capable during the exams, especially when he went above and beyond to defeat the Ichibi Jinchuriki. What you may not have known is that I had specific instructions to tell Naruto the truth under two conditions. Walking away from his chair, Hiruzen approached the window, gazing out over Konoha. He took a few puffs from his pipe, his eyes closed as he contemplated. First, when Naruto turned 16. Second, when he achieved the rank of Chunin. If I felt Naruto was mature enough, I would have told him even if either of those conditions was met. Why? Because unlike most in this village, I believe in him. I'll need to call a council meeting soon to announce his heritage. It's not something we can hide forever. What worries me is how the villagers will react. Jiraiya, his temper still simmering, interjected, You know damn well how they'll react, old man. They'll call you a liar and demand Naruto's death for nothing. And Danzo he'll be even more determined to recruit Naruto into root, turning him into a weapon. What will you do about it? Nothing. Naruto has suffered so much, and you did nothing. You declared a law that prevented him from being adopted, leaving him to suffer alone when someone could have cared for him. Hiruzen waved off his ANBU guards, taking a deep breath as he faced Jiraiya's heated glare. Listen, Jiraiya, listen well. I did what I did to keep Naruto safe. It might not have been the best decision, but I'm not perfect. And you, Jiraiya, you sent him money to survive. But did you ever visit him even once a month? No, you're just as guilty of abandoning Naruto as I am, so don't deny it. I've made mistakes, many of them, and then there's Tsunade. Before he could say more, Jiraiya grabbed Hiruzen's collar and lifted him off the floor, shaking him briefly. ANBU guards immediately surrounded them with swords drawn. Reluctantly, Jiraiya set his sensei back down, stepping back. He didn't break eye contact though. Leave Tsunadeheim out of this. Old man, she probably doesn't even know about Naruto. If she knew, she might have returned and done everything in her power for him. But let's not dwell on that. We've failed Naruto. All of us, now that he knows the truth. I wouldn't blame him if he wanted to burn this village down. Hiruzen pushed away from Jiraiya's grip, sat back down in his chair, and sighed heavily. Jiraiya took a seat on the couch, still seething but willing to hear his sensei out. Yes, we have failed. I have an idea, Jiraiya-kun, if you're willing to listen, I want you to find Tsunade and bring her back here. Whatever it takes, I hope you won't need to resort to force. What's more, I want her to become the Godame Hokage. I have a feeling that if you take Naruto along and allow them to meet, it might convince her to return. But more than that, it's crucial for both of them to heal and find a way back to normalcy. We can't let them continue like this. Jiraiya nodded slowly and sighed. I understand, old man. I'll go see if I can't talk to the kid. Maybe if I tell him that he and I are going on a mission, he'll actually come out and talk to me for a change. Shrugging, the old pervert rose from where he sat and patted his legs. Mind making this an official mission, old man? I don't care if you call it a C rank or an A rank. Just write something up and help me out here so I can get the kid out of the village. I already know where she's at and it won't take the two of us too long to get there. Perhaps I can even teach the Gaki something along the way. I'm more concerned about the results of this council meeting you're going to tonight. Be careful and don't let them pull any of their usual shit with you. Okay, old man? When Hiruzen simply nodded with another heavy, long, drawn-out sigh, Jiraiya grinned and patted him on the shoulders. Good. Now, Naruto. Uzumaki Namake's compound, master bedroom. 15 minutes later. Have you figured it out yet, Naruto? It was a gruff voice that echoed inside the young man's head that spoke to him. This voice belonged to the Kyuubi, the most powerful of all the 9 Bijuu. When her container simply shook his head and scoffed, the Kyuubi sighed softly inside his head. Not yet. My two Sans jutsu seems a bit more complicated than I had originally anticipated. Kyuubi, the Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, was one of two Sans' trademark techniques from what I've heard and read thus far. But the damn thing is just so complicated. Still, if I can figure this out, then maybe. Naruto frowned and shook his head. Naruto, I understand, I already agreed to help you, but you're going to need to recruit allies if you want to succeed. You can't do it all on your own, and you're not going to be able to find all the allies you need here in Konoha. If I was outside I could help you, but there's only so much one can do when they're trapped inside a cell such as mine. The blonde-haired young man closed his eyes and began to roll up the scrolls he had laid out on his new bed. I already told you, Kyuubi. I'm working on it. Just be patient while I figure something out. Yes, during the week, the young Uzumaki had chosen to contact the Kyuubi. The two of them have shared a mental link since then. Together, they worked on perfecting his new jutsu, among other things. Kyuubi had taken it upon herself to teach Naruto what she could, while instructing him to read through the various scrolls in his new home, while he had his privacy for information on his parents, their jutsu, and their history. Aside from all that though, the two of them continued to make plans about where to go from here and what to do along the way. So far, the two of them had decided that the Sandaime Hokage could no longer be trusted. Naruto had decided, with the Kyuubi's help, to wait until the Hokage announced to the village about who Naruto's parents were so he could gauge their reactions. Depending on what happened from there, it would help him to decide his next actions. All in all, the blonde Chunin had formulated several plans with Kyuubi's help, and whatever he decided to do would be somewhat dependent on what the people of Konoha did with the information they would be receiving soon. Both Naruto and Kyuubi suddenly froze when they sensed somebody trying to bypass the security seals he had set up earlier in the week to keep people off his property. Groaning, the blonde-haired young man hurriedly put away his things, grabbed hold of a kunai, and moved out of the room. Within seconds he was outside, glaring daggers at the direction of his compound's gate. Upon noticing who it was, the Chunin sighed and shook his head, quickly putting away his kunai. It's just him. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. As Naruto moved towards the gate to allow Jiraiya in, Kyuubi decided to voice her opinion on the man. Naruto, are you sure you can trust this man? You were with him for that full month and he didn't tell you a thing about your parents, or who he really is to you. In fact, he barely taught you anything, and for that matter, why the hell hasn't he been around for you? The young blonde sighed and shook his head, coming to a halt. He noticed Jiraiya waving at him to let him in. Naruto raised one hand and held a finger up, signaling, 1 SEC, Erosenin. I'll be right with you. Ignoring Jiraiya's nickname, Naruto tuned him out and communicated with Kyuubi. I've only known this man for a month, Kyuubi. I can't judge him based on such a short time. He has helped me a lot during that month, so he deserves the benefit of the doubt for now. I'll talk to him and give him a chance to explain himself. Depending on how he answers, I can either forgive him or condemn him like I did the old man. Kyuubi huffed but agreed to Naruto's decision. Naruto then shrugged his shoulders and walked over to let Jiraiya inside his compound. Come on in, Hiruzen, I'll make some tea, and you can tell me why you've come. Jiraiya, though still sporting a frown, nodded and followed Naruto into his home. He took a seat on the couch in the living room, watching Naruto closely. After a moment of silence, Jiraiya finally spoke. Naruto, I'm going to take you with me on a mission. We're going in search of Tsunade, your godmother. The old man wants her to become the next hokage, but I'm not sure it'll be that easy to convince her. At best, we might get her to head the hospital and train new medics. Heck, our current medics could learn a lot from her. But more than that, I'd like her to get to know her godson. I think she'd be proud of you, Naruto. Naruto listened as his godfather explained the mission further, then put his teacup down on the coffee table. He frowned and looked at Jiraiya, a serious expression on his face. Before I agree to go with you, can you answer something for me? Seeing the seriousness in Naruto's eyes, Jiraiya nodded. Of course, Naruto, ask away. Naruto sighed heavily and punched his fist into the couch beside him. Why didn't you tell me who you really were to me? And for that matter, why weren't you there for me? I'd been insulted, harassed, beaten, and I never had a chance growing up. Even now that I'm a shinobi, they still try things from time to time. I thought if I could prove myself to these people, show them they were wrong about me. He shook his head, frustration clear in his voice. Why weren't you there for me, Hiruzen? Was it so hard to come by and see me from time to time? That would have been enough, just to know that somebody cared about me, that I had some semblance of family. Do you even care about me, Jiraiya? Or am I just another gaki to you? Naruto's eyes shifted dangerously between their usual blue color and red with slit pupils, reflecting his mixed emotions. Jiraiya paused for a moment, letting Naruto's words sink in. He then placed a hand over his chest, gripping the fabric tightly. Naruto, you're not just another gaki to me, you're my godson. And on top of that, you're Minato Namake's child. You mean a lot to me, and I care about you deeply. I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you. I won't make excuses. I should have visited you earlier, spent time with you, something you deserved so much better. Naruto looked at his godfather, and his anger seemed to subside a bit. He chuckled softly to himself, then smiled. I'll give you a chance, Hiruzen. Don't run off without telling me first and giving me a good reason for it. I never experienced having a mom and dad like other kids, so I'd appreciate it if you stuck around, spent time with me, helped me with my training, whatever you can do. When we bring Tsunade back, I expect the same from her as well. What do you think? Jiraiya grinned. Sounds like a plan, Naruto. I didn't plan to leave you so soon anyway. But what are your plans now that you know everything? I get the feeling you're pretty angry with the old man. Naruto sighed and nodded before helping Jiraiya off the couch. Yeah, I'm angry. It's hard to forgive him for what he did. He's the reason I wasn't adopted, coming up with a law that nobody could adopt me. What kind of nonsense is that? Realizing his anger was flaring again, Naruto took a few deep breaths and closed his eyes. You asked about my plans, right? Seeing his godfather nod again, the boy breathed out another breath and nodded. To be perfectly honest with you, my plans depend on what the villagers and my friends choose to do once they learn the truth about who I am. I won't say any more than that just yet. Walking off with the now empty teacups, Naruto rinsed them out and set them aside before turning back to face Jiraiya. That's fair, Naruto. Go on and get yourself ready. I'll wait for you at the main gate in 10 minutes. I'd like to leave as soon as possible so we don't lose her. That and the council meeting is being held tonight. Sooner we get out of here, the better. We'll let them soak in the information while we're gone. When we come back, we'll have their true reactions. Sound good? Getting an affirmative nod from his godson, Jiraiya patted him on the head and smirked. See you in a bit, gaki. And with that, Jiraiya was off while Naruto went off to pack his things. Later that night, council meeting room. Hiruzen Sarutobi sat in his chair, his face in his hands as he listened to all the hubbub in the room. People were discussing what this particular meeting was actually about. From what everyone was saying, Hiruzen was fairly certain that he was the only one in the room with any knowledge of the true reasons behind this particular meeting. Raising his head, the Sandaime Hokage rubbed his tired eyes and shook his head before calling for everyone's attention. I've noticed that you are all wondering just what this particular meeting is about. There are a few reasons. Firstly, I would like to inform you all about 2 rogue ninja that infiltrated the village earlier today. These 2 ninja were Kisame Hoshigaki, former member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist, and Itachi Uchiha, The person responsible for the Uchiha massacre. As the whole room went silent and gasped, Hiruzen nodded his head and closed his eyes, folding his hands before him and resting his chin atop his hands. These two are now members of a group known as Akatsuki. They came to the village searching for Naruto Uzumaki. Frowning, he shook his head and glanced over his shoulder towards Danzo and his old teammates before looking forward once again. They seek the QB sealed away inside of him. Their organization's exact purpose is unknown to us at the moment, but Jiraiya and his spy network are going to continue observing them and relaying whatever information they can, when they can. Unfortunately, they didn't leave without incident, shooting a quick glare at the civilian council. Hoping they got the message to stay quiet, Hiruzen quickly continued, Jonin's Kurinai Yuhi, Asuma Sarutobi, Kakashi Hatake, and Might Guy confronted them when they arrived. However, Kakashi is currently in the hospital in a coma of some kind. He battled Itachi and unfortunately could not quite measure up. Shortly afterwards, the two criminals left the village and have not been seen since. The Sandaime could not continue to speak as he was soon interrupted by a rather rude civilian council member. Rising up from his seat, the brown-haired, blue-eyed man was practically snarling at the Hokage. Why didn't we just let those criminals take the demon brat? We could have finally been rid of the little monster once and for all. Now, instead of being rid of the brat, one of our top jonin is in a coma, and you're still protecting that wretched demon. Explain yourself? Fuming by this point, Hiruzen waved his hand and sent a silent signal to one of his ANBU. Within an instant, the councilman's head was rolling along the floor while his body slumped to the ground where he once stood. I shouldn't have to say this, but I will anyways because you council members seem to be going senile far faster than even I am. Do not talk about Naruto Uzumaki in that way. Keep it up and I'll personally destroy every one of you for everything you have ever done to him. You're fucking monsters and I will not have you treating the people of Konoha in such a way. Now sit down, shut up, and listen, all of you. After that little outburst from the Hokage, everyone quickly shut up and sat staring at their Hokage with wide eyes. After calming down, Hiruzen smirked and nodded. Good, the next order of business is related to the Akatsuki situation. Not too long ago, Sasuke Uchiha left the village. It seems he overheard a conversation at the hospital regarding his brother and Kakashi's condition. It doesn't take a genius to know what's going through the boy's mind. I've already dispatched Might Guy, Kurinai Yuhi, and Asuma Sarutobi to search for him, so Sasuke will be returned to us shortly. However, I'd like to hear opinions on what should be done to address his reckless behavior once he returns to Konoha. Any suggestions? As expected, the civilian council members immediately reacted to this. Kihari Haruno, Sakura Haruno's aunt and the council leader, stood up and glared at the Hokage. Why would you even suggest such a thing? Sasuke-kun is well within his rights to seek vengeance for his clan. The civilian council refuses to seek punishment against him for doing what he believes is right. Before anyone else could speak, Danzo stepped forward with a sly grin. The boy obviously lacks discipline. Hokage-sama, you could always simply let me have him. I could easily correct him, so to speak, and teach him respect. He would learn quickly under my guidance. Hamura and Koharu, the other two council members, nodded in agreement, expecting the civilian council members to side with them. However, Kihari vehemently opposed this idea. She turned red and shook her head vigorously. Absolutely not. You will not touch that darling boy. If you want Naruto, you can take that little troublemaker. But you will not lay a finger on Sasuke-kun. Feeling a sudden pressure bearing down on her, she turned slowly to see Hiruzen's disapproving gaze. Quickly retreating to her seat, Sakura's aunt fell silent and didn't speak another word. Frustrated by the council's antics, Hiruzen turned to the shinobi council and signaled for them to share their opinions. What do you have to say? Forget these individuals. They clearly don't appreciate the need to reprimand Sasuke for leaving the village without orders. In fact, before you even speak. Hiruzen waved his hand toward the door. You, civilian council, get out. I won't tolerate your interference in these meetings any longer. The civilian council is disbanded. Your actions with these three have justified this decision. Don't ever come back. Despite the civilians' attempts to argue, Hiruzen's overwhelming presence forced them to leave the room. Once they were gone, Hiruzen turned his attention back to the three elders with a smirk. Anything you three want to say? Or can I hear from the shinobi council, the ones who actually care about making reasonable decisions? Shikaku Nara spoke first, offering his opinion. Despite Sasuke's arrogance and his attitude during the Chunin exams, we can't justify revoking his ninja status at this point. Confinement to the village for at least a month and some coaching from someone like Ibiki Marino might be in order. Sasuke needs to learn respect and manners, and Ibiki can teach him that. What do you all think? The Shinobi Council members quickly agreed, with some even suggesting that her dogs could contribute to Sasuke's education. Hiruzen announced that Sasuke would receive his punishment upon his return to the village. With that matter settled, Hiruzen moved on to the final issue of the night. He sighed and looked up at the ceiling. It's time you learned about Naruto's heritage, and why I made the choices I did all those years ago. Now that he has achieved the rank of Chunin, I have informed him of his true parentage and bestowed upon him the gifts his parents left him. Sim quickly grasped the significance and shot up from her seat, slamming her hands on the table. Are you telling me the kid is Kushina and the Yandame's son? What the hell, Sandame-sama? If that's the case, why didn't you let me adopt him all those years ago? You denied me every time, even knowing how dear she was to me. Hiruzen sighed and rubbed his forehead. I'll explain everything shortly, but yes, you're correct. Naruto's parents are Minato Namikaze, the Yandame Hokage, and Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto is the last of the Uzumaki clan, and he's the Yandame's legacy. I'll announce this to the villagers in the morning, but for now, I'd like to hear your opinions. Inoichi Yamanaka chimed in. If he truly is their son, and I believe you, some might demand that he be included in the CRA. They might try to use the Yandame's son for breeding purposes. It's wrong, but I can understand the reasoning behind such arguments. Hiruzen nodded in agreement. I'm well aware of the potential issues. We must tread carefully. I appreciate your input. The Hokage shook his head and narrowed his eyes as he looked at the table beneath his elbows. I absolutely refuse to force Naruto-kun into such a thing against his will. He hasn't spoken to me in a week and he's got seals intact that prevent me from spying on him. My best guess is that Naruto is currently furious at me for keeping such secrets from him, and even more furious with me for the laws I put into place that prevented him from being adopted by those who actually wanted him. It's going to take some work to regain his trust and set things right, and the CRA would only make things worse, so I will refuse that adamantly. For a good time, the remaining council members continued to speak about Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze and about what would be said in the morning. In the meantime, Danzo and the elders, Hamura and Koharu, were currently trying to formulate their own plans for little Naruto. Whatever would benefit them in the end was exactly what they were going to try and pull off. Soon enough, Danzo disappeared, leaving everyone to their own devices. This only gives me even more reason to get that sniveling little Gaki on my side. Possessing Naruto would earn me such leeway. I could control everything. Meanwhile, Shakuba Town, in second floor, Jiraiya and Naruto chose to rest in a small town known as Shakuba Town for the night. They had been traveling all afternoon and evening, but they hadn't reached their target yet, a place called Tanzaka Quarters. That was the location where Tsunade was currently said to be, and with the festival taking place, the chances were that she would be there for some time yet before moving on. After moving out from Shakuba Town in the morning, the traveling duo should be able to reach the lively town by midday if there were no distractions. Sadly, despite Jiraiya's promises to train him along the way, he had chosen to run off with some woman shortly after paying for their room for the night. So, deciding to let the old man have his fun, Naruto ventured to their room, locked the door, and sat upon the bed so he could resume looking through his scrolls. I really don't see why you even bothered giving him another chance. Look at what he's doing. You'll have to continuously use that horrendous Oiroku no Jutsu, stone technique, on him if you ever want to learn anything. You realize that, don't you? The Kyuubi criticized, clearly not happy with Jiraiya and his perverse antics. Naruto simply chuckled and shook his head in response as he unfurled a scroll and began to read. Think about it, Kyuubi. Since when does any woman actually flirt with Ero-sensei? Naruto questioned as he read through the instructions for another Suiton, water release jutsu that he found in one of his mother's scrolls. As he did this, Kyuubi pondered over his question for a moment before replying. Actually, now that you mention it, the old fool never could get any attention from the women you two saw during that month. He kept getting pummeled by them for being a disgusting old pervert. That, and he's what? 50 years old? Naruto chuckled and shook his head. Heck if I know, Kyuubi. But you're starting to see my point. Unless that woman's a prostitute or something, there's no way she'd just approach us and start flirting with the old man like that. And judging from the way she was dressed and the rest of her appearance, She certainly doesn't look like a prostitute. So, based on that information, what conclusion can you draw, Kyubi? The Kyubi was silent for only a few moments before her voice rang out in his head again. Something's going to happen. Somebody tried to lure him away, so they could get to you. That's the conclusion you've come to, isn't it, Naruto? Chuckling to himself as he began practicing the hand seals for the jutsu he was studying up on, the blonde nodded his head. Yep. And I just let it happen because I'm curious to see what someone could possibly want with little old me. Kyubi was definitely not happy to hear that, but she understood. In truth, she was curious as well. At the same time, however, they both had a bad feeling about their current situation, and Naruto wanted to prepare himself for a conflict should it come down to that. Kyubi came to the decision that if a fight broke out, she'd willingly feed her friend as much chakra as he needed, so long as it was within reasonable amounts. Too much, and without the proper training, and it could very well tear his body apart, and that was something she just didn't want. The two of them didn't have to wait long before they both felt a dark presence outside of their room. Quickly slipping away his scrolls once more, Naruto waited patiently. When he finally heard knocking on his door, the young Chunin quietly put his hands together in a familiar hand seal and summoned forth 6 shadow clones, using the Henj no Jutsu transformation technique. Naruto transformed into a small scroll that one of his shadow clones picked up and tossed to another one that hid itself in the corner nearest the door. When the only visible shadow clone moved over and opened the door, Naruto and his clones listened carefully, waiting to hear what their possible opponent might want. When his clone didn't instantly recognize the duo standing outside the door, Naruto began to rack his brain as to what strangers would want with him. It was then that he heard them speak, and what they said had him concerned. They want you, Kyubi. Who are these guys? Before Kyubi could respond, the clone that opened the door left the room, making sure to leave the door open as he did, just in case. Smirking inwardly, Naruto sent a mental signal to the clone that was currently holding him. When the taller of the two enemies talked about chopping his clone's legs off, the clone holding the real Naruto formed a single hand seal and the shadow clone outside in the hall exploded, sending both opponents flying from the blast. With another signal, all the shadow clones revealed themselves and leaped out of the room to check on the enemies. One clone stepped forward, pretending to be the real Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Itachi, tell me why the hell you're after me. What the hell do you want with me and the Kyubi? Kisame Hashigaki was the first of the 2 Akatsuki members to shake off the force of the explosion. Laughing, he looked at the clones and shook his head. Damn brat. I thought you said the brat was a dumb shit, Itachi? That little display was something else entirely. He was clearly expecting us. And he even knows a high-level jutsu. Look, fucking shadow clones. Makes me wonder what else this little punk knows. Twirling Samahata around in his hand, the fish man smirked to himself as he looked each of the clones over. Itachi simply brushed himself off as he stepped forward to stand beside his partner. It would seem he's learned a few things since becoming a genin, but it isn't enough to deter us. And I'm afraid even my Sharingan isn't enough to tell the real Naruto apart from his shadow clones, seeing as he's choosing to be difficult. You should go ahead and let loose until the real one chooses to show himself. Just don't go drawing too much attention to yourself, Kisame. We're trying to play it low-key. Narrowing his eyes, the Uchiha looked between each of the clones and tried to figure out which of the clones was the real Naruto. When he still couldn't, he shook his head and sighed. Go on, make it quick. Kisame's smirk widened as he took a step forward, holding Samahata out in front of him. Sounds good to me, Itachi-san. Now, which of you little punks wants to try me first? When the clone holding the Naruto scroll stepped forward and began flashing through hand seals, Kisame quirked an eyebrow. Interesting, what's the little gaki up to? The clone finished its hand seals and brought a hand up to its mouth, smirking. Enjoy, fish breath. Futon. Bakuhatsu Tikana no Dangan, wind release, explosive air bullets. The clone quickly began to fire a series of tiny air bullets from its mouth straight at the Akatsuki members. Itachi, seeing this attack, quickly went through a series of hand seals and brought his hand up to his mouth as well. Katon, Gokaku no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. A moment after Kisame moved back behind his partner, the two techniques collided, and the area around them literally exploded, taking most of the second floor of the inn with it. When the smoke finally cleared, Itachi narrowed his eyes and glared across at the clones. That was a dangerous maneuver. Naruto-kun, Are you trying to kill the people staying here? That doesn't sound like you. Naruto shrugged and smirked across at Itachi. I must admit, I'm disappointed in you, but no matter, we are here to take you, Naruto-kun, so stop resisting. Before anyone could say anything more, a voice rang out from the other end of the now destroyed hallway. Naruto recognized the voice and inwardly groaned. Itachi, I promised myself I'd kill you. You murdered everybody. Naruto couldn't help but feel disappointed that Sasuke had shown up for vengeance rather than to help a friend in need. Itachi turned away from the clones and waved his hand behind him. Kisame, deal with Naruto-kun, please. It seems my dear Otoro has come to pay me a visit. Who am I to deny him his wishes? Kisame smirked and nodded, eager for a bit of fun. Sure thing. Itachi-san, you deal with the flesh bag. I'll get the Kyuubi brat. I hope you make him scream. It's so much fun to hear them scream. Kisame chuckled to himself before turning to face off against the clones once more. Now, let's try this again. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, to hell with it. Kisame charged forward, aiming to take out one clone at a time until he found the real Naruto. It just wasn't his style to worry about picking out the true Naruto from the crowd of clones. It's way more fun to just kill them all. As Kisame cut down clone after clone, his frustration grew. It seemed to be an endless problem, with more clones appearing as he dispatched them. Damn it, what the hell is going on here? Kyuubi brat, stop hiding already and show me what you've really got. Naruto, within his mind, smirked as he watched Kisame's actions. Alright, clones, get ready to enact the plan. Group number 1, I already gave you your orders. You're on the distraction detail. Groups number 2 and number 3, unleash these jutsu when I give the signal. Kisame's frustration continued to mount as he cut down the next wave of clones, only to realize his mistake too late. Fuck. He shielded himself with his arms and Samahata as the explosion from the shadow clones engulfed him. When the smoke and debris settled, Kisame snarled and glanced around. You little punk. Just wait until I get my hands on you, Kyuubi brat. I'll make you regret trying to toy with me. Before Kisame could continue his rant, he saw what Naruto had prepared for him. Oh, Itachi, I am going to kill you for this misinformation. Bracing himself for what was to come, Kisame began to hate taking this job on with his partner more and more. The Naruto clones grinned as the two groups announced their techniques. Futon, Daitapa, Wind Release, Great Breakthrough. The first set of clones shouted. The second group charged at Kisame, each with a Rasengan in hand. Naruto had studied and learned these jutsu himself during his week of seclusion. Though they were challenging to master, the Rasengan, in particular, had been difficult. The jutsus combined, albeit imperfectly, each Rasengan was powered up by the wind jutsu, creating an imperfect technique. Each clone slammed their Rasengans into Kisame, some aimed for his back, while others tried to disarm him. The sword absorbed the chakra, but Kisame grunted and took the brunt of the attacks aimed at his back. When the attacks were over, Kisame swung his sword in a wide arc and took out the remaining clones. Clearly angered by what had transpired, he barked at Itachi. Damn it, Itachi! You lied to me. The brat's not some weakling like you made him out to be. He ruined my cloak and did something to my back. You'd better make up for this mistake later. The final Naruto clone sighed and shook his head, patting the scroll at his side. Naruto braced himself for the next attack. He knew Kisame was out of his league, but he could at least leave some lasting damage if he played his cards right. Naruto gave his final clone the signal to challenge Kisame directly and focused on his next move. Kisame looked at the final Naruto clone, clearly assuming it was the real Naruto this time. Finally decided to face me yourself, you stupid brat? Or are you planning to surrender finally? Smirking at that, Kisame stroked his hand along his blade, Samahata, and grinned at the boy. If so, that'd be one hell of a smart decision. However, you've pissed me off, so I hope you don't mind if I take a leg or two off. The clone sighed and shook its head before pivoting on one of its feet and moving quickly behind the fish man, swinging one of his legs up in an attempt to kick the taller man in his side. The clone found its eyes going wide when Samahata was quickly swung around, cleaving him in two. With a smirk, the clone waved goodbye to the swordsman before poofing out of existence. Fuck! Another damn clone. That's it, brat. Where the fuck are you? When I get my hands on you, you're going to regret pissing me off. Smirking to himself, the real Naruto finally dropped his transformation from behind Kisame, The Akatsuki member didn't have any time to react as he soon felt two wind-enhanced kunai embedded within his sides. Screaming out in pain, the angry swordsman backhanded Naruto and sent him tumbling along the ground. Fuck. Itachi. Turning, he saw Naruto beginning to tap into the Kyuubi's chakra. Ugh, damn it, fuck. Stop playing with that runt brother of yours and get over here. The little fuck's getting ready for something big. A short distance away, Itachi Uchiha shook his head before tossing his brother aside. Sasuke had already fallen prey to the Tsukuyomi, and would no longer be interfering with their operation. Watching as Sasuke's head hit the floor, the older of the two Uchiha brothers scoffed. You are still so weak, Sasuke. Did you truly come here, thinking you could defeat me with such weak abilities? Shaking his head, Itachi closed his eyes and moved to join Kisame at his side. Upon reaching his partner, Itachi looked at his wounds and found himself donning an amused grin. Interesting. So he's ruined your cloak, has he, Kisame? Seeing Kisame's glare now focused on him, Itachi simply shook his head before turning his gaze to the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. It would seem you've changed a bit, Naruto-kun. Still, you have a long ways to go if you truly hope to measure up to the likes of us. Taking a step forward, Itachi prepared to use the Tsukuyomi on Naruto as well, only to find himself halting in his steps. Behind them, Jiraiya had finally made his appearance. Seeing the tall man, Naruto breathed a sigh of relief and released his chakra cloak, choosing instead to collapse to his knees. About time you got here, Hiruzen. You're lucky I managed to hold the big guy off as long as I did. Chuckling to himself, the blonde Jinchuriki rose to his feet and watched as the two Akatsuki members fled for the time being. Shaking his head, Naruto looked around at all the destruction. TCH. I am not paying for all this. Jiraiya frowned at all the destruction as he joined his godson and placed a hand on his shoulder. All the people that were staying here, what happened to them, Naruto? Seeing the concern in Jiraiya's face, Naruto scoffed and looked away. Don't worry so much, I'm not so heartless yet that I'd just murder a bunch of innocents in a damn fight. While I was setting things up, I used shadow clones to vacate the second floor. When you were escorted off by that woman, I had a feeling something was up, TCH. It was shortly after you left that I began escorting people out of their rooms to safety. I didn't want to have to hold back because I was worried about their safety after all. Jiraiya sighed, clearly relieved that the people of the inn hadn't been hurt in the fight. Still, he glanced around, realizing the inn's damages were another issue to contend with. Before he could truly think about it, he sensed three presences behind him and turned around to see three Konohagakure ninja appear near Sasuke. Yo, what brings the three of you here? Kurenai looked between the downed Sasuke and the Toad Sage and shook her head. We were sent to retrieve the Uchiha. Shortly after you two left, two men in black cloaks appeared in Konoha, Asuma, Guy, Kakashi, and I fought them, but it didn't end well. Kakashi's in a coma after something Itachi did to him. Before she could go on, Kurenai found herself being interrupted by Naruto. Itachi's one of the bastards that just attacked me. The team over there showed up a short time after I was attacked, but it wasn't to assist me. So, let me guess what happened. Closing his eyes, Naruto brought his left hand up and began rubbing his nose, frustration clearly taking over. Sasuke team overheard Itachi's name. He heard my name mentioned and went looking for me. Realized I had left the village with Ero-sensei here. From there, he left the village, most likely without permission, and followed my trail here. And here's the best part in his grand plan. Rather than coming here out of some concern for me, even as just a fucking teammate, he had planned to somehow, miraculously kill his traitor of a brother, Itachi Uchiha, and hoped he fucking do. His revenge would be settled, and he could go live happily ever after fucking himself in the ass with a wooden spoon. Am I correct there, senseis? Everyone was looking at Naruto, shock evident on their faces. At least until Jiraiya broke out into a large smile and began to laugh heartily. When he finally managed to calm himself down, the Sannin patted his godson on the head. That's an exceptional way of putting it, Gaki. From what I've heard about the Uchiha brat, that actually sounds like it would be right on the money. Though it looks like his plan didn't quite succeed now, did it? Naruto shrugged in response. Of course not. Itachi easily defeated him. And then that happened. Itachi Uchiha clearly did something to his brother, but I don't know what the hell it was still. Whatever it was, it can't be pretty. The team screamed loud enough for the entire town to hear him. Then again, with me having blown the second floor of the inn to pieces, I suppose that's to be expected. Once again, The adults looked to him with bewildered expressions. Kurenai, frowning at this, rose to her feet and began to approach him. Naruto-kun, are you saying you did all this? What about the people you were fighting? How could you have done all this? Naruto grumbled and shook his head. I'm not the weak fool people think me to be, Kurenai-sensei. Sure, I'm not strong enough to beat those two, but at least I could come up with a plan that would hold them off long enough for Erosenin here to arrive. I suppose the best way to explain my strategy would be this. Exploding clones. Aside from the initial damage caused by those, the rest of the damage was done when mine and Itachi's jutsu clashed. Pretty big explosion took place then. With a shrug of his shoulders, Naruto turned away and walked back into the remains of his and Jiraiya's room. I'm done answering questions now. The team could use your help. Get him back to Konoha. Get one of the medics to look him over. I don't give a shit. As for Kakashi, he hasn't exactly done much for me either. Still, once we bring Tsunade back, she should be able to help the two of them. Doesn't matter to me. With another quick shrug, the Namikaze boy knelt down and brushed some rubble aside. Finding his and Jiraiya's bags, he tossed Jiraiya's to the Sannin and threw his own over his shoulder. Let's go, Jiraiya-sensei. It seems that we have even more incentive to find Tsunade now. The others watched as Naruto walked off before leaping down to speak with the innkeeper. They overheard the blonde Jinchuriki telling the man to bill Konoha for the damages, much to their dismay. Sighing and shaking his head, Asuma turned to Jiraiya for answers. What the heck happened to Naruto, Jiraiya-sama? Jiraiya sighed and shook his head. That's something you'd have to ask the old man. Something Hokage-sama said to Naruto caused that conversation changed something in Naruto-kun, and it worries me. I'm still furious with the old man. I truly am. Shaking his head, Jiraiya walked over to the three and patted them on their shoulders, one at a time. Take the Uchiha brat back to Konoha. When Tsunade heals him, I'm sure he'll have to answer for his actions. I'll be sure to look after Naruto. Now, see ya. As Jiraiya walked away, he couldn't help but shake his head and let out another gruff sigh. So much for getting some rest for the night. Have to admit I wasn't expecting this to happen. Early the next day, in Konoha, the entire village had gathered around the base of the Hokage Tower, everyone murmuring to one another as they tried to figure out what was going on. They had all been summoned for some kind of speech the Hokage was preparing to give, and rumors abound about the purpose of the upcoming speech. One such grouping consisted of the remaining rookie genin, and Chunin Shikamaru and Nara, that stood together, discussing the possibilities. Ino, being the gossip that she is, decided to confront the only Chunin of the group with questions. Shika, I bet you know something, don't you? You're the only one of us besides Naruto that was made Chunin, and we haven't seen the loudmouth in over a week, so fess up, what's going on? Shikamaru sighed and shook his head before looking Ino in the eyes with his usual lazy look. Not really, Ino. Just because I'm a Chunin doesn't mean that I'm made aware of every juicy detail about everything that takes place in the village. Geez, this is just too damn troublesome. First Naruto disappears without telling us anything, then Kakashi gets injured, and now this crap. It all just screams the word troublesome to me. Sakura sighed and smacked the Nara in the back of the head. Everything's troublesome to you, Shikamaru. Naruto disappearing probably has nothing at all to do with the Hokage's speech. So why even bring that up? Kakashi getting injured is far more important than that idiot. At the look she was given in response to her statement, Sakura blinked a few times and shrugged her shoulders. What? It's true. Shino shook his head in disappointment, refusing to even speak to her. Instead, he looked over at his teammate, Hinata, as she stared hatefully at the pinkette. It was unusual for the Hyuga girl to ever show anyone even that small level of malice. But what Sakura had just said had at least warranted this much from the normally timid, shy girl. Stepping back so Hinata could step by, he nodded at her and patted her reassuringly on the back. You say that now? Even after all Naruto-kun has done for you? Just recently, he risked his life to save you. You were even told that he defeated Jigara and managed to rescue you. So why do you still badmouth him like that? Hinata shouted at Sakura, clearly furious with her for daring to speak bad about the boy she so dearly loved. The entire situation was infuriating, and Hinata couldn't take much more of Sakura's horrid behavior. Ino found herself shaking her head in disappointment of her best friend. I can't believe you'd say that about your own teammate. Forehead. Yeah, he may not be the coolest guy around, but after saving you, One would think you'd at least give him a little credit. Naruto's not the same weakling we once thought he was, remember? At this, many of the others nodded their heads, completely agreeing with that sentiment. More of them went to speak, but all eyes suddenly turned up above as the Sandaime Hokage finally made his appearance. Looking down at his village and the many villagers below him, the old man sighed heavily and shook his head, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear him. The Hokage began to give his speech. Many of you may be wondering why I called you all here today. Seeing many of the villagers below nod, the Hokage smirked knowingly to himself. Many of you might think it has to do with one of our jonin being attacked and placed in a coma. Or perhaps you might think it has to do with the recent invasion attempt by Orochimaru. I want to tell you that my speech today has nothing to do with any of these things. Noting their confusion, the Sandaime chose to continue before anyone could interrupt him. I have called you all here today to talk about one Naruto Uzumaki. This talented young man is someone many of you seem to hate, and without good reason. Many of you choose to hate him without even knowing why. You simply choose to follow in the ways of your predecessors, your family, and your friends. I am here to tell you that you are foolish for doing so. At the angry uproar below him, the Sandaime shook his head and demanded silence from the masses. Once everyone had gone quiet, he continued his speech. Let me explain a little about Naruto before you say any more hurtful words about him. Many of the younger villagers here do not know this, and it was meant to remain an S-rank secret. Sadly, somebody spread the knowledge the very night poor Naruto was born about what he carries inside of him. Sighing at what he was about to say, Hiruzen understood that it was knowledge that must be spread for the masses to understand Naruto for who and what he truly is. You see, Naruto Uzumaki was made into a Jinchuriki the very night he was born. For those of you wondering what this means, the answer is quite simple. The Kyuubi wasn't killed on the night of October 10th those many years ago. One cannot simply kill a tailed beast. Instead, the Yondaime was forced to seal the Kyuubi into a young boy. I see the knowing looks on many of your faces. Yes, the Kyuubi was sealed inside one Naruto Uzumaki on the very night he was born. Hearing the ever-familiar cries of how Naruto was the demon incarnate, Hiruzen shook his head and released a wave of killing intent, to silence the masses once again. Not letting up, he continued to speak, effectively making sure all could hear him. Some of you may believe this makes him the very demon itself. This is not so. Your violent actions towards him in the past were unfounded, unjustified, and all those who chose to torment that poor boy simply for housing the Kyuubi deserve to be killed where you stand. But that is not what Naruto would want. Sighing heavily, Hiruzen lightened his ki somewhat and continued to speak, a solemn tone in his voice now. Naruto never once retaliated against those that hurt him. The beast never took over. He hasn't harmed anyone aside from those he met on missions, or in the recent Chunin exams, or even the Jinchuriki known as Gaara. In those battles, he has fought to prove himself, to protect a client, and even to protect the village and those he cares for, or cared for. The last few words were muttered under his breath, not even loud enough for those close to him to hear. Shaking his head of the thoughts that started to plague his mind, the elderly Sarutobi continued his speech. You see, Jinchuriki are treated similarly throughout the nations. They're treated as weapons, as tools of war in some places. In others, such as here within this very village, Jinchuriki are treated as monsters not worth even a grain of salt. Naruto has had it so hard, and this is not at all what the Yondaime wished for when he sealed the beast inside of the poor boy. The Yondaime wished for Naruto to be viewed as a hero, for without Naruto, the beast could very well have killed us all, have destroyed our entire village. Without Naruto, the beast would still roam free. Naruto is the only thing that is stopping the Kyuubi from escaping and unleashing its power on the world once again. Naruto has proven himself a hero, and you monsters can't even treat him as such. Seeing the pain on their Hokage's face and hearing the words he spoke, many of the villagers below practically sunk into themselves. Their posture changed, and many looked like wounded pups. Those who were close to Naruto, who knew him personally, such as his fellow genin and Chunin Shikamaru, looked as if they were currently trying to wrap their heads around everything they had just been told. They weren't given much time to think, however, as the Hokage looked as if he was about to speak again. Looking closer, they could see tears rolling down the elderly man's face. Wiping his tears, the old Hokage took a few breaths and resumed his speech. I am ashamed of what this village has become. I am ashamed that its people could prove to be so cruel and so hateful towards one so undeserving of it all. But more than that, I'm ashamed of myself for not doing anything to stop it. I just let it happen when I could have done so much more for Naruto Uzumaki. Shaking his head again, the Hokage stared hard at his villagers until a small smirk played at his lips. You all thought Naruto's parents had abandoned him at birth, or even that he never had any. Regardless of what you thought, Naruto Uzumaki had wonderful parents, and many of you knew them, or at least of them. In fact, you all should know of his father. Look to the monument behind me, and I shall tell you who Naruto Uzumaki's. Seeing the villagers do as they were told, Hiruzen smirked wider and glanced over at the head of the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto's father is Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage himself. His mother is Kushina Uzumaki. The two of them loved their son very much, and were very much looking forward to meeting him. They could have led a wonderful life together had fate not taken such a tragic turn that day. Hearing the gasps and denials of the people below, Hiruzen focused his gaze on them once more. You may want to deny this, and say that I'm feeding you a tale full of lies. But I assure you that this is the truth of things. Naruto took the surname of his mother. We hid his heritage from the people to protect him. Instead, I feel I should have been a bit more honest far earlier on so that he could have been protected from you. You've spat on the wishes of his father, of the Yondaime Hokage you all loved so much. If his parents could see what has become of this very village, and what you have done to their beloved son, I am certain the two of them would be so very, very disappointed in all of you. Clenching the railing before him angrily, the Hokage's knuckles began to turn white after a time. For a moment, he clenched his teeth and fought to calm himself. After a few moments' time, Hiruzen Sarutobi began to speak once again. All Naruto Namikaze has ever wanted was to be acknowledged by someone. He has fought to earn your respect, your friendship, and your recognition. Never once did he claim to hate any of you. Naruto is truly the heir to our Yondaime, and he's the sole surviving member of the lost Uzumaki clan as well. You should be thanking him for being here, for being so kind to all of you. When Naruto returns from his mission, I hope you apologize to him. I hope he can find it in his heart to forgive you for your crimes against him. Hokage-sama. Since this concerns Naruto, why isn't he here? What mission could be so important that he couldn't be here for this? The question was asked by one Choji Akimichi, but it was a question many were now wondering. Truly, what mission could warrant taking their favorite blonde knucklehead out of the village for an important time such as this? Hiruzen, expecting this question, but hoping it wouldn't be asked, found himself sighing, shaking his head. The elderly man answered in his normal, calm tone of voice. Naruto went on a mission with Jiraiya of the Sannin just yesterday. I asked that Jiraiya find Tsunade Senju, another of my pupils. I'm hoping that the two of them can convince her to return to Konoha to become your new Hokage. I'm old and I'm tired, but this actually brings me to something else that might prove valuable for you to know. Nodding his head at this, Hiruzen stared calmly at the masses below and found himself smiling. Jiraiya and Tsunade of the Sannin are Naruto Namikaze's godparents. Yes, such legendary figures as my students are Naruto's godparents. When they return to Konoha, you might want to be careful. I doubt they'll be as kind as I've been should you choose to treat their godson like shit. Chuckling softly to himself, the old man turned his back to the people below. I'm done, make of this what you will. If you have any more questions, I'll answer what I can. Just be smart about what you say. I truly am tired of it all. Stepping back inside, the Hokage took a seat at his desk and lit his pipe. All I can do now is wait and see what happens with Naruto-kun returns. I hope you can forgive me for my inaction, Naruto. A few hours later, Shikamaru, Nara and the rest of the rookies, excluding one Sakura Haruno, had decided to meet with each other at the Akimichi's barbecue joint to discuss everything they had just heard. Of course, naturally, they had tried to invite Sakura, but she wanted nothing to do with it. Apparently the Pinkette refused to believe that Naruto could be related to the Yondaime and stormed off. They all pretty much expected that to happen, but it was still troublesome nonetheless. Unexpectedly, at least to the rookies, was the fact that most of their parents had decided to come to the meeting as well, along with some of their other family members. Those that chose to join the group were Tsum and Hana Inuzuka, Hayashi and Hanabi Hyuga, Inoichi Yamanaka, Chozo Akimichi, and Shikaku Nara. The simple fact that they chose to be there meant they wanted to discuss this topic not only amongst themselves, but with their friends and family as well. Releasing a heavy sigh, Shikamaru leaned back in his seat and stared up at the ceiling as they waited for their food. Choza had the other Akimichis working on it so he could be here for the conversation. So troublesome, I could have ventured a guess as to who his father was based on his looks alone. But this confirms it. Shrugging, the Nara boy looked to his father and cracked a small smile. I assume you adults already knew everything already? Shikaka shook his head and groaned. Some of us certainly had our suspicions, but Hokage-sama's announcement yesterday night at the meeting finally confirmed it for us. It's definitely troublesome, knowing Namikaze's son suffered while we did nothing for him. Regardless of that fact, there's not a damn thing that we can do to change the past. What matters from this point is what we do to make it up to the boy. Ino frowned at this and looked to her father for a moment before she glanced around at all the others. But, what can we do? I wouldn't be surprised if Naruto hates us. Choza reached over and patted the girl on her shoulders. No worries there, little one. Naruto secluded himself from everyone for the past week, as Hokage-sama told us during the meeting. But I think the lad's just trying to sort things out right now. It must have been pretty surprising to find out that his father's the Yondaime after all. But, I worry for the Namikaze boy. I don't think he hates any of you, but the village? That's another question. As their food was delivered to them, Shino glanced at his food for a moment before he decided to speak up and voice his opinion. Tried to think of things from Naruto's point of view for a moment. Seeing the others looking his way, the Aburame picked up his chopsticks and poked at his food for a moment before continuing. Hokage-sama knew this information all along. To Naruto, who never truly had a family and who was treated so harshly by the villagers, wouldn't this feel like a devastating blow? To Naruto, wouldn't he feel as if he's been lied to by one of the people he trusted wholeheartedly? Hana nodded her head, a solemn expression taking hold of her features. You have a point, Shino-san. If I was in Naruto's shoes, I'd have a hard time forgiving Hokage-sama for that. In fact, I think I'd feel incredibly betrayed and hurt inside. Who knows what he's been up to during his time of seclusion? Do you think he moved into his parents' old home? Shikamaru nodded at this and began to dig into his food for a time before he finally spoke up. No doubt about it, if Naruto did, it would explain why we haven't seen hide nor hair of him since he became a Chunin. I was there in the room when Hokage-sama announced we had both made Chunin, and I remember Naruto being told to remain behind so that he could speak to him. So he must have been informed then and gone straight there. You definitely raise a good point, Hana. There's no telling what Naruto's been up to during that time of seclusion. Troublesome. Ino sighed at that and dabbed at her mouth with a cloth before speaking. Stop saying that all the time, Shika. I'm just really worried about him. I know it may be selfish of me to say this seeing as Naruto and I aren't really the best of friends. Boy, that's an understatement, she muttered under her breath, seeing similar looks from everyone around her. Sighing, she continued with her statement. Point is, I don't want Naruto to change. Hinata spoke up at this point, having remained quiet this entire time so far. I feel the same way, and Naruto-kun's fine the way he is. He's kind, passionate, believes in himself, doesn't let others bring him down. He's an incredible person. I can only imagine how much he's hurting inside right now. This village has hurt him so much. What if Naruto-kun decides to leave because he can't stand being here anymore? The one person he trusted more than anybody turned out to have been lying to him all along. Hanabi looked at her sister at this point. Hinata looked absolutely heartbroken at this thought, and so she found herself reaching over and gently squeezing Hinata's hand. With how hard he fought Niji and Aizen, I hope he doesn't decide to leave. Hokage-sama did say that Naruto-san has been fighting hard to get people to acknowledge him, right? Wouldn't leaving just ruin that for him? Hayashi slowly nodded his head, but kept his eyes closed as he ate his food in silence for a time. He listened as the others around him made conversation. The one he was most concerned about at this moment was his daughter, Hinata. The leader of the Hyuga clan clearly knew of her feelings for the boy, and while he didn't approve of them at first, Naruto had proven to be an incredible shinobi thus far. His actions during the Chunin exams and the influence he had on Hinata were clearly astounding. Upon finishing his meal, the Hyuga clan had looked around at everyone before clearing his throat to signify that he would like to speak. I may not have always approved of the boy, but Naruto's proven himself a trustworthy individual. If he does choose to leave the village, I, for one, will not hold it against him. I know some here would probably even follow him. At this, Hayashi shot a knowing look at his daughter and smiled softly at her before continuing on. I'll be honest here. This village has changed over the years. Hokage-sama's disbanding of the civilian side of the council was perhaps one of the better decisions he has made in years. They were a corrupt group of individuals involved in shady dealings, and a number of the attacks made against the young Namikaze boy, the elders, Danzo Shimura included, are a concern as well. But that is neither here nor there. What does concern me is what Naruto's plans are now that he's learned the truth. The only thing truly tying him to Konoha now is his parents, and the home they left for him. To be honest, I doubt that is a strong enough tie to keep him here in the village. Tsum shook her head and sighed at this. It's frustrating to think that way, but I agree with you, Hayashi. I'll say it now. If the boy decides to leave Konoha, I plan on going with him. And if and when that happens, I'm hoping my children and clanmates come with me. The boy deserves better than what we've given him, and I want to look out for the pup from now on. He deserves to feel as if he's part of a family after all he's had to put up with. Inoichi closed his eyes upon finishing his meal and had so far listened to everything the others had said. Sighing after hearing what some said, he opened one of his eyes and glanced her way. You won't be the only ones leaving with him. Think about it. Hokage-sama informed us that Jiraiya and Tsunade of the Sannin are his godparents. If Naruto were to abandon the village, it wouldn't surprise me if they chose to do so as well. Losing Jiraiya and his spy network would be a problem. But if Tsunade were to go with them and never return, we'd lose valuable medical expertise that our medics could greatly benefit from. Naruto leaving would turn out to be a truly horrible thing for our village. I'm certain of it. The others could only nod their heads in agreement with that line of thinking. Ino lowered her head, placing her chopsticks down on the table now that she had finished eating. I feel bad for how I've treated him. Like really bad. When he comes back, if he really doesn't hate us yet, I hope I can be a better friend to the knucklehead. He deserves at least that much. For a good while, the friends and family members ate together and chatted with one another. Their conversation topic remained focused on one person almost the entire time, Naruto Namikaze. Many of them clearly wished the best for the boy. But there was one person eavesdropping on them that clearly didn't agree with any of them. The pinkette turned away and stormed out of the restaurant, an angry scowl on her face. I don't care if the idiot saved me, that doesn't prove anything, son of the Yondaime? A hero? I'm not buying it. When he comes back, I'm going to give that idiot a piece of my mind for trying to lie to everyone like this. Elsewhere, Tanzaku quarters. As Jiraiya and Naruto walked into the town, they both let out a heavy sigh and fists bumped each other. We are finally here, chuckling together. The godfather/godson duo smirked and instantly found themselves agreeing on their first destination. We're getting a room at an inn before we look for her. As they began the trek to their first destination, Naruto felt a familiar tug in the back of his mind. Opening up the link again, he began speaking to the Kyuubi while keeping track of where he and Jiraiya were headed. What's up, Kyuubi? Something troubling you? Kyuubi let out a long, frustrated sigh before she finally spoke. It's nice you two are getting along and all, but don't forget he did abandon you for some time. Sure, the perv's teaching you some things now. And yes, he's treating you with a bit of respect still. Do you really think it's okay to just forgive him for his neglect up until now? Frowning slightly at the Kyuubi's words, Naruto followed Jiraiya into a pretty fancy-looking inn and decided on his words carefully before responding. I understand and thank you for your concern, Kyuubi. But Jiraiya's not the one I truly have a problem with. The Sandaime Hokage's the one that lied to me all my life and let me suffer all that abuse. If the old bastard had actually done something, maybe I wouldn't have led such a shitty life. Jiraiya. Okay, surprisingly. Besides, I know you, Kyuubi. You're not worried about Pervy-sensei. What's really on your mind? Kyuubi chuckled at that and shook her head, the image clear for Naruto to see if he focused enough. You're right there. I just want you to be careful of one thing, Naruto. Don't let him rub off on you too much. I don't want you turning into a huge pervert that peeps on women while they're bathing. Naruto and Kyuubi shared a laugh at that before the nine-tailed demon fox continued on. What I'm concerned about is what you'll do when you see Tsunade. After all, you heard what Jiraiya told you, about why she left the village, her history, etc. Well, there's one thing he forgot to say. He didn't mention if she knows she's your godmother or not. So, while you may assume she is, be careful and don't let her words rile you up, alright? You may be here to convince her to return to Konoha with you, but it's more personal for you and you know it. So, be careful, okay? Naruto let out an audible sigh, catching Jiraiya's attention. slowly raising his hand. Naruto smirked up at him. Don't worry, just having a conversation with Kyubi-chan. I told you already that we talk, so what would you have me do, Kyubi? If she pisses me off, and it's likely to happen based on what Jiraiya-sensei's told us about her so far, then I can't really guarantee I'll manage to keep my cool. Still, for you, I'll try my best. Still though, keep in mind, no guarantees. All I can ask is that you try. Who knows? If all goes well, she might even be one of those willing to help you pay Konoha back for all their crap. Well, if you decide to take it that far. I know you're still planning to take a wait-and-see attitude on this after all. Laughing softly, the Kyubi cut the link so Naruto could focus on searching for Tsunade with Jiraiya. After placing their things in their room, Naruto turned to Jiraiya and shook his head. Don't ask, Kyubi's just concerned about me. Wants me to be careful. Now, as much as I'd like to rest, it might be prudent of us to find Tsunade and speak with her before we get any rest. Groaning, Naruto rubbed his shoulders and hung his head. After that fight and then walking all night, I have to admit that I'm pretty damn sore. Thanks for sticking with the Fuinjutsu, sealing techniques, lessons instead of anything too physically taxing, Jiraiya-sensei. I appreciate it. Nodding his head at his godson, Jiraiya reached over and patted the boy atop his head. No problem, Naruto. I must admit though, you're picking up on Fuinjutsu far quicker than I expected you to. Then again, you are an Uzumaki, so it shouldn't be too surprising, I suppose. Regardless, you have a point. We should find Tsunade before she decides to skip town on us. Might as well go have a look around then. Shrugging, the two left the inn and went off in search of the blonde Sannin. Later in the afternoon, around 3 p.m., Naruto and Jiraiya were grumbling as they entered yet another bar. It was one of the few places they hadn't checked yet, and the two of them were honestly tired. They hadn't been able to rest for far too long now, and they had spent almost the entire day since arriving in Tanzaku searching for the bloody Sannin. I swear if she isn't in here, I'm heading to the inn and taking a nap. I'm struggling just to keep my eyes open, Jiraiya. Jiraiya nodded and reached up to rub at his eyes. When he went to respond, the man let out a loud yawn and let his hands droop at his sides. Ugh, I'm feeling so sluggish here. Kid, I'm with you. If we can't find Tsunadeheim here, let's go back and sleep. All we can do is hope that she'll still be here tomorrow and that she'll be easier to find. As it stands, I'm starting to regret not resting at the dam inn when we first got here. Cammy knows we needed the rest then, and we definitely do now. Taking the seat offered them by their waitress, the two looked at one another for a moment before they looked over their menus. However, as they were about to decide on what to order, the two soon heard the voice of the exact person they were looking for. Naruto didn't recognize it at first, namely because he hadn't heard her voice before, but Jiraiya did, and the Toad Sage found himself smirking. Bingo! It looks like we've finally found her. Naruto, come on. Motioning for Naruto to stand and follow him, Jiraiya stepped through the place until he spotted her. Cammy, she still looks beautiful even now. Chuckling at his thoughts, the Sannin walked over and took a seat across from her without ever speaking a word to her. When she turned to face him, clearly ready to tell him to buzz off, the sage found himself smirking as he winked at her. Long time no see, Tsunadeheim. I hope you've been well? Tsunade let her head hit the table and groaned loudly. Ugh, waitress, I could use some more sake, damn it. Looking up, the female Sannin looked Jiraiya in the eyes before turning back to Shizen. It hasn't been nearly long enough. Jiraiya, what the hell do you want? Before Jiraiya could respond, Naruto walked over and took a seat next to the big man. So this is her, huh? I have to admit, she looks a lot younger than I expected. I figured she'd look to be about your age, Erosenin. Chuckling to himself, Naruto soon found himself having to dodge Tsunade's attempt to grab him by the collar of his flak jacket. Smirking her way, the blonde Chunin shook his head. Struck a nerve, did I, Tsunade-chan? Don't try to grab me like that again. Narrowing his eyes at the older woman, Naruto released a sigh and shook his head before speaking again. From what I've heard of you so far, I have to wonder something. Why do you choose to gamble and drink so much? First off, drinking in excessive amounts like that won't do anything for your health. Second, gambling really won't help you work off any debts you've racked up. Instead, it will only increase the amount of debt you owe, and to the number of people you owe money to. For one of the legendary Sannin, gambling away all your money all the time really isn't that very smart. You're not doing yourself any credit. Frowning at her, Naruto found himself avoiding another attack. This time a punch aimed at his head. Sighing, Naruto chuckled to himself before looking up at Jiraiya. You're right, Jiraiya-sensei, she does have a violent temper. All I had to do was speak the truth and she flew off the handle. The older man sighed and shook his head as he stared down at the whiskered, blonde Chunin beside him. True. But you didn't have to provoke her like that. I thought you wanted to get to know her, Naruto? Not piss her off. Remember our mission. Seeing his godson nod in response, Jiraiya turned to his longtime friend and offered her a placating smile. Calm yourself, Tsunade, and let's talk for a bit. For old time's sake, will you just hear me out? Tsunade sighed as she thought it over, shooting a look at the blonde brat before her and then at Shizen and Taunton. The blonde Sannin frowned and nodded her head. Fine. But any food you order's on you. I'm not going to pay for the crap you two choose to eat here. Jiraiya chuckled and nodded his head in response, a gleeful grin on his face. Sounds like a fair deal to me. That actually makes this easier than I thought it was going to be. You see, Tsunade, the Gaki and I were sent on a mission to find you. I assume by now you must have heard about what happened in Konoha recently, correct? Tsunade shrugged her shoulders and took a sip of her freshly poured sake, clearly not happy with this situation. I've heard some, but I'd rather hear it straight from the horse's mouth. What exactly happened this time, Jiraiya? The white-haired Sannin chuckled and leaned back, picking up his own cup of sake and bringing it to his lips. Upon draining the cup of its contents, he placed it back upon the table and motioned for Tsunade to pour him another cup. Orochimaru happened. That's what. The bastard had a whole invasion planned. First he plants that damn curse mark of his on Sasuke Uchiha during the second stage of the Chunin exams. And then he unleashes his army on Konoha during the third stage. Orochimaru tricked Suna into joining the invasion on his side by taking the place of their Kazekage. So, with the combined forces of Suna and Oto, things got pretty rough for Konoha. It didn't help matters any that the Ichibi Jinchuriki was unleashed during the chaos as well. Tsunade's eyes widened for a moment before she poured both Jiraiya and herself another 2 cups of sake, downing both of hers. The blonde-haired woman shook her head and released a heavy sigh. Damn. I didn't think he'd take things quite that far. Konoha's fine, I take it? How about the old man? And who the hell stopped the Ichibi Jinchuriki? You. Jiraiya chuckled at that and patted Naruto on the head. To answer your questions in order, Konoha's fine, a little shaken up after the invasion and they're still in the process of repairing the damage. But they'll be fine. The old man survived the ordeal. But due to some of his recent actions, he and I aren't on the best of terms right now. And finally, the one to stop the Ichibi Jinchuriki was this guy right here, Naruto Uzumaki. Smirking at his longtime friend and crush's current expression, Jiraiya shook his head at her. No, I'm not lying. He put up quite the fight and defeated the Ichibi Jinchuriki, even after the beast was allowed to take over. Pretty impressive, wouldn't you agree, Tsunade? Naruto shrugged his shoulders at that before looking up into Jiraiya's face. I wouldn't have been able to pull it off if you hadn't trained me for that month. Your training helped a great deal. As did your teaching me how to summon the toads. Gamabunta was a big help. At that, Tsunade's eyes widened a great deal before she downed another 3 cups of sake. You're telling me this little Gaki managed to summon Gamabunta of all things? He looks like he'd barely be able to summon a tadpole for Kami's sake. You have to be pulling my leg here, Tsunade finally said after a moment's thought. At the expressions on their faces, she sighed heavily and lowered her head again. Ugh, okay, maybe you're not. That's pretty impressive for a Gaki your size. When it looked like Naruto was about to say something in response to her insulting words, Jiraiya quickly patted his shoulder and gave Naruto a look that said, let me do the talking. Nodding reluctantly, Naruto went to eating the food he had ordered a short time ago while Jiraiya resumed the discussion. Tsunadeheim, let me get to the reason we came to find you. It's time for you to return to Konoha. Tsunade grumbled and nodded her head. I already figured that much based on what you said earlier. The answer's no. If that's all you wanted to say, then buzz off and leave me to drink in peace, she replied grumpily, clearly not even willing to humor the idea of returning to Konoha with him. Jiraiya sighed and shook his head before downing another cup of sake. It's not that simple. The old man would like you to replace him as Hokage, Tsunadeheim. It would also be prudent if we could convince you to train the medics. But aside from that, there are patients that they need your help with. Kakashi Hatake and Sasuke Uchiha are just a few that need your attention. Tsunade released a loud laugh at this before shaking her head in disbelief. Me? Become Hokage? No thank you, and I can't do anything to help rid the Uchiha brat of Orochimaru's seal. You know that. I'm not a Fuinjutsu master like you, Jiraiya. Laughing to herself, Tsunade poured herself another cup of sake. Jiraiya sighed and rubbed at his temple. They were attacked by Itachi Uchiha. Something he did has put the two of them into some kind of coma. They aren't waking up, to be honest. Naruto here was Itachi's intended target. He and his partner in crime wanted to capture him. Tsunade raised an eyebrow at that and glanced at the blonde-haired Uzumaki boy. Interesting. Now, why would they want to do such a thing, I wonder? Smirking to herself, Tsunade had a basic idea, but she wanted to hear it directly from the men before her. Naruto scoffed at this and shook his head. Don't give me that crap, you've got an idea, so don't play dumb, but since you want to hear it from me, I might as well tell you. Leaning forward, the blonde Jinchuriki smirked at Tsunade. Yes, I'm the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Yes, they wanted me for that reason, they made that perfectly clear. I don't know exactly what Itachi and Fish Breath want with the Kyuubi and me, but does it matter? They ran away after Jiraiya-sensei came to the rescue. I doubt I'll be seeing them again anytime soon. With a shrug of his shoulders, Naruto took a sip of his tea that he had ordered a short while ago before he went about finishing his meal. Jiraiya nodded his head at that before he spoke his thoughts on the matter. I've been looking into the group those two are a part of for a while now. They're seeking Jinchuriki for some purpose. But that's not exactly clear just yet. The Akatsuki, as they're called, aren't too active yet, and I only know the identities of a few of their members, Itachi Uchiha, Kisame Hashigaki, and a man named Deidara from Iwagakure. They're a pretty secretive group, and it's hard to get any information on them. I can't even get a good grasp on the size of their organization. Shaking his head, Jiraiya ruffled his hair a bit before he decided to get back to the main reason for their visit, Tsunadeheim. That's beside the point right now. As much as I can't stand that old monkey right now, you need to come back with us. What can I do to convince you to return with us? Tsunade practically snarled as she turned on her old friend. Nothing. Now drop it, Jiraiya. If you don't have anything else to talk about, then get lost and leave me to my drink. I'm done talking to you. When the blonde boy scoffed, Tsunade turned on him and narrowed her eyes. And what the hell's your problem? Naruto dabbed at his lips with a cloth before focusing his gaze on her. The coldness in his gaze caught the older woman off guard. My problem? Let's start with you. So bad stuff happened in your past? So what? You're just running away from your problems and wallowing in self-pity and a pool of misery. It's pathetic. You even left your own godson to rot in that hellish village known as Konoha. You want to know what the villagers did to your precious godson that you abandoned, Tsunade? TCH. I bet you probably don't even give a shit. But guess what, you cranky old bitch? I'm going to tell you anyways. Slamming his fist down on the table, Naruto pointed a finger in the woman's face. Your godson was put through hell. That's what happened. For something that wasn't even his fault. He was harassed and beaten by the villagers for so damn long. One of the people he was closest to turned out to be nothing but a lying bastard recently, and can no longer be trusted. Your godson doesn't have any true friends. He had to struggle just to become a fucking shinobi. He doesn't get any damn respect. But has he quit yet? Has he decided to just run away from his problems? Nope, your godson is toughing it out and making plans to make things better for himself. Scoffing again, Naruto rose and began walking away. Go ahead and pity yourself, you cranky old bitch. TCH, it was a total waste of time coming here. Turns out you're worse than I imagined. Leaving the bar/restaurant, Naruto decided to wait outside until Jiraiya was finished so they could discuss what to do next. Meanwhile, inside, Tsunade sat with a dumbfounded expression upon her face. Slowly turning to Jiraiya, she found herself struggling to find the words. When she finally found her voice, the Sannin voiced her thoughts. Jiraiya, what the hell did that little brat mean? Since when was I named somebody's godmother of all things? How long ago did something like that happen? And just, fuck it, what the hell is going on, Jiraiya? Downing another cup of sake, Jiraiya groaned and threw his head back, staring blankly at the ceiling. I'm no better. I didn't stay in the village. I didn't protect the Gaki. Kami knows I should have done more for him. But I only entered his life recently. It's amazing our godson is even giving me the chance he is. Especially after what he's learned, shaking his head. Jiraiya found himself chuckling dryly, a bitter taste in his mouth. How do you think it felt to learn that somebody he looked up to so dearly, the Sandaime Hokage, was lying to him all his life? was the very reason he couldn't even be adopted of all things. Boy, did we really screw the poor Gaki over good. Frowning deeply, Jiraiya closed his eyes and rested his face in his hands. That boy that just stormed out. That's our godson Tsunade. He's been through hell in that village. Konoha has changed so much. It's just not the same anymore, Tsunade. It's just not the same. A few tears trickled down the old Sanin's cheeks before he shook his head and began to laugh. It's just a damn nightmare of a place. Naruto still goes through hell in that village, and he still stays there. But he's changed, Tsunade. Before he was such an energetic boy and was full of smiles and laughter. But learning the truth really hurt him. The poor Gaki's in a dark place right now and he needs our help. At least take the time to get to know him properly. Come back to Konoha with us, Tsunade. Kami knows he could use someone like you in his life. Shaking her head in disbelief, Tsunade rose and followed after Naruto, heading out into the streets to look for him. She was soon followed by Shizen, Tantan, and Jiraiya, whom was forced to place money down for the entirety of the bill before he followed. Naruto had his back turned to them so they couldn't see his expression. After a moment, Tsunade decided to speak. If you're really my godson, then before I say anything else, I'd like you to apologize to me, Naruto. Naruto found himself chuckling at that, still refusing to turn to her. The blonde Jinchuriki threw his hands behind his head and stared up at the sky. An apology for speaking the truth, yeah, that's original. What the hell do you want now, Tsunade? If you've changed your mind and decided to return to Konoha with us, then just say so, otherwise leave me the hell alone. Grumbling at his blatant disrespect towards his own godmother, Tsunade began stepping towards him. Damn it, brat, stop being such a pain in the ass already. I already told you I'm not going to return to that damn village. Before she could continue, Naruto turned slightly so he could look at her out of the corner of his eye. Then we've nothing to talk about. I'm sure we can find somebody else to be Hokage. As for getting Kakashi and Sasuke healed, I'm not even sure if I really give a damn, to be honest with you. Kakashi favored that damn Uchiha team. And the team? TCH. I don't really need to say anything. His arrogance speaks for him. Chuckling darkly to himself, Naruto turned to face her and smirked. So Tsunade, go ahead and continue running up your debts. Keep drowning yourself in the drink and stumble through life like the pathetic bitch you are. Turning his gaze to Jiraiya, Naruto shrugged his shoulders. I'm going back to the inn to get some sleep. You're free to try and talk sense into her. I don't really care. When Naruto turned around and began to walk away, Tsunade stomped towards him and went to punch him in the back of the head for being such a punk. She was shocked, however, when the Naruto before her exploded in a cloud of smoke, blinking a few times. It was only then that she felt a kunai pressed against her back. A cold sweat ran down the back of her neck when she felt somebody's breath on her ear. Glancing quickly towards her assailant, she saw the same blonde-haired runt standing behind her. TSK Tsunade, did you really think I'd leave myself open like that? I left a shadow clone and kept myself in a henge transformation, while I waited for you to follow me? Riling you up was just a tad too easy, don't you think? Smirking to himself, Naruto pressed the kunai against her a little harder before he continued. If I was an enemy shinobi, I could have killed you already. Now, explain to me why I should apologize to you exactly? When Naruto slipped away his kunai and allowed her to turn around to face him, Tsunade found herself frowning at him before folding her arms over her bust. You're not really what I expected, Naruto. I didn't know I even had a godson until Jiraiya told me. To be honest, I never once thought I had anything left for me in Konoha. I still don't, from the sounds of it. You hate it just as much as I do. But... Sighing, she shook her head and pointed her finger at him. You still shouldn't be so rude to your godmother Gaki. That's why I think you should apologize. You don't know all the details about what led me to be like this. Nor do I know all the details about what's happened to you. So, as your godmother, I'd like you to apologize still. I suppose it would be best to lead by example now, wouldn't it? Bowing her head, Tsunade sighed heavily before she spoke again. I'm sorry, Naruto, for not being there for you. Naruto chuckled at that and shook his head. You're not the only one. But there's really nothing for you to apologize for. I figured you didn't know. Still, you have to understand my frustrations. Being lied to all my life, finding out that the villagers practically spat on my father's wishes, and having to deal with all this other crap that's going on. It's a little much, don't you think? Smirking at her, Naruto reached out a hand and gave her a quick handshake. I'm sorry as well for how I've treated you. I'll forgive you for now. I'm really tired right now though, so I'm going to head back and get some rest. Hopefully, we can talk more later and get to know each other better. I'll see you back at the inn, Jiraiya-sensei. Waving goodbye to his godparents and Shizen, Naruto walked off. Placing a hand on the woman's shoulder, Jiraiya shook his head. Tsunade, I think you'd be pretty damn proud of everything he's accomplished so far. He's fought so hard for it all. Still, he needs our help. With a shrug, he moved to walk past her, only to lean in close and whisper quietly in her ear, as for the deal Orochimaru made you, I hope you aren't even considering accepting it. You can't trust anything that snake says. Tsunade's eyes widened, and she looked into Jiraiya's eyes. How did you? How did I know? Naruto-kun and I figured it out after seeing the destruction earlier. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that Orochimaru came here to see you. I don't know what he offered you, and to be honest I don't care. I hope meeting Naruto will sway you to our side, but in the end, the decision is up to you. We'll wait for your answer, Tsunade. With that, he stepped past her and waved over his shoulder. Good night, Tsunadeheim, sleep well. Tsunade fell to her knees and began to chuckle somewhat nervously. That clever bastard, shaking her head, the Sannin found herself laughing at her misfortune. My luck has to be the worst in the world. What did I do to get on Kami's bad side like this, I wonder? With Shizen's help, Tsunade stood up and walked off with her to hopefully get some sleep in their room. The rest of this week is going to be terrible. I can see it now. Later that week, Shizen was pounding hard on the door to Naruto's and Jiraiya's room. When Naruto opened it, she looked around quickly and shook her head. Naruto-kun? Where's Jiraiya? Wasn't he supposed to be with you? Naruto shrugged and let her into the room. Jiraiya didn't return last night. I figured he went to speak with Tsunade, but... Frowning, the blonde sat upon his bed and began to tap his fingers on his knee. Why are you so panicked, Shizen-chan? Something's clearly bothering you. Tsunade went on her own to meet with Orochimaru. She knocked me out, and when I awoke, she was gone. Naruto-kun, we need to find her and stop her from doing something stupid. Naruto chuckled at that. Wow, so she really is crazy. Shaking his head, Naruto rose and prepared his things. I doubt she's going to accept Orochimaru's deal so readily. If anything, she's probably just trying to take care of the pedo snake on her own. Pretty stupid if you asked me. Walking to the window, Naruto threw it open and stepped out. Jiraiya-sensei, I assume you heard all that? Are you good to go? Jiraiya chuckled dryly, his throat feeling as if it was burning. Just as soon as Shizen gives me something to help counteract this damn drug, I have to admit, I didn't expect Tsunade to pull a fast one on me like that. Looking at the black-haired young woman as she stepped out to join them, Taunton in her arms, Jiraiya grinned. Shizen, mind helping me out real quick? Shizen nodded quickly and went about doing whatever she could to help Jiraiya. Sighing sadly, she shook her head. The best I can do is to give you this, Jiraiya-sama. It'll take some time for the antidote to kick in. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. Jiraiya smiled at her and patted her shoulder. No worries. I'm sure it'll be enough. Now come on, we need to hurry. Receiving nods in response, the three hurried off to help Tsunade deal with the snake and his cohort.